True power doesn't scream. It doesn't chase the spotlight. It enters quietly and rearranges the entire room without saying a word. While others beg to be seen, the strategist stays invisible, not because they're afraid, but because they're in control. In a world drowning in noise, the most dangerous force is the one that doesn't need to be loud. Because when you know what you're capable of, you stop trying to prove it. This is the psychology of stillness, of silence, of calculated presence. And no one understood this better than Machiavelli. Violence is loud, panic is louder, but power, real power, whispers. It's clean, surgical. It moves when everyone else is still figuring out what just happened. You've seen it. The one in the meeting who says nothing yet controls the outcome. The person who never threatens, but everyone avoids crossing. The energy in the room shifts around them, and no one's sure why. That is the essence of untouchable power. Because when you're calm while others spiral, your silence becomes terrifying. Machiavelli didn't glorify cruelty. He didn't worship chaos. He studied human behavior and stripped away the fantasy. Perception controls outcome. You don't win by shouting the truth. You win by controlling the optics. In any conflict, the person who looks in control usually is, because everyone else defers to the image, not the reality. You don't have to be right. You just have to appear unshaken. That alone is enough to make most people hesitate. And that hesitation, that pause, is where control begins. When someone lashes out and you don't respond, you create silence. And silence forces them to face themselves. It magnifies their instability and reflects it back to them. Most people fear uncertainty more than confrontation. So when you respond with stillness, when you don't play the emotional game, they don't know how to handle you. And in that confusion, you gain ground. You don't need to shout to destroy someone's strategy. You just need to stay unreadable long enough for them to destroy it themselves. Because chaos doesn't need a push, it needs a pause. This is the edge of emotional neutrality. It's not about being cold, it's about being untouchable. You're not reacting, you're calculating. You're not suppressing emotions. You've just mastered the ability to delay them. You understand that the first person to lose control always loses leverage. Machiavelli knew, when people act on impulse, they expose their weakness. But the one who watches, listens, waits, that's the person who shapes the board without ever touching the pieces. They let others feel powerful while slowly closing the trap. Sometimes the most threatening thing you can do is smile when they expect fire. Sometimes the most lethal move is no move at all. It's not about ego, it's about outcome. Why fight for control when you can own the atmosphere? You don't change people, you change conditions. That's where true strategy lives, not in confrontation, but in environmental manipulation. Instead of attacking head-on, you shift the room, the timing, the options. You rearrange the game until your opponent plays into their own defeat, thinking it was their choice. You don't need to overpower them. You just need to shape the options so every path leads back to your victory. This is what it means to think 10 moves ahead. Let them talk. Let them threaten. Let them scramble. You just keep rearranging the walls until they corner themselves. This isn't mind games. This is structural warfare. And the battlefield isn't out there. It's perception, timing, and presence. You don't win by being emotional. You win by being unshakable. You don't tear people down in public. You isolate them in private. You drain their support quietly. You shift alliances. You control the rhythm until they're out of sync, out of breath, and out of options. When confrontation comes, you don't explode. You execute without noise, without warning, without giving them the satisfaction of seeing it coming. And here's where Machiavelli's genius shines. He didn't just advocate dominance, he advocated invisibility. The predator who roars invites defense. The one who limps, apologizes, and waits, he disarms the room, then closes the trap. To fake weakness is not to surrender, it's to disarm their guard, to make them believe they've won, to let them relax right before the ground disappears beneath them. You're not retreating, you're resetting the stage. You're setting the timing. You're placing the spotlight right where you want it before you cut the lights. People assume dominance is about control in the moment, but the real masters plan the ending before the beginning even starts. You don't want a confrontation you'll have to revisit. You want finality, because half measures invite revenge. They breed obsession. They leave the door open for a return. And Machiavelli warned, a wounded enemy is the most dangerous kind, not because they're strong, but because pain breeds obsession. They leave the door open for a return. And Machiavelli warned, a wounded enemy is the most dangerous kind, not because they're strong, but because pain breeds obsession. And obsession doesn't rest. So you don't wound. You end it, clean, quiet, without a second round. Whether it's blocking, walking away, cutting ties, or removing their influence, you don't explain. You vanish. Let them talk to the silence you leave behind. You don't win a confrontation by making noise. You win by making absence feel like a warning. When they realize you're gone, and the silence isn't passive but final, that's when power becomes unforgettable. Because unfinished conflict festers. It festers in their head, not yours. Let them spiral. Let them guess. Let them wear themselves down, trying to predict a response that never comes. This isn't cruelty, it's psychological closure. And it's critical because people don't forget how you made them feel, especially when they're left wondering what you could have done, but didn't. That gap between expectation and action, that's where fear breeds. Because now you're no longer just a person, you've become a presence. And presence without explanation becomes legend. Let them talk. Let them build stories around your silence. You don't have to destroy someone to win. You just have to become someone they'll never dare to challenge again. Machiavelli said, if you must injure someone, do it in such a way that you need not fear their revenge. That doesn't always mean going for the jugular. Sometimes it means going for the foundation, quietly, patiently, permanently. In personal relationships, that might mean cutting access and never looking back. In business, it means taking away influence before they realize it's gone. In any power dynamic, the rule is simple. Never leave your enemy enough to rebuild. You don't need applause. You don't need vindication. You need control. Because when they know you're capable of silence this complete, they will never test you the same way again. This is how the strategist survives, not with rage, not with threats, but with emotional precision. And if you think that's passive, you're still missing the point. Stillness doesn't mean inaction. It means you don't move until the move counts. While they're reacting, chasing drama, burning energy, you're sitting back, letting the system collapse around them. You're not angry. You're patient. You're not loud. You're effective. Because here's what most people never learn. Time is your deadliest weapon. Everyone wants the win now. Now or never. But Machiavelli knew, the one who can wait without growing weak wins everything. He let enemies trip on their own pride. He let their allies become their liabilities. He let fear rot them from the inside, while he stayed silent, composed, untouchable. The world teaches you to chase control. He taught, control the environment, and people will fall in line without force. You don't challenge someone head-on. You reshape the space around them until their behavior bends toward your goal. Deadlines shift. Alliances dissolve. Expectations are subtly rearranged. And by the time they react, they've already lost their footing. That's power. Not the kind that shows off, but the kind that ends games before they begin. Think about it. How often do you react before thinking? How many times have you said too much when silence would have done more? Now flip it. How much more powerful would your life feel if people couldn't read you? If they didn't know what rattled you, what excited you, what could pull you off center? Because predictability is weakness. And weakness, whether real or imagined, becomes a map for manipulation. So you protect your center, you respond late, or not at all. You speak only when the words will land like a blade, not a background noise. You don't interrupt, you let them talk. And when it's your turn, you make every syllable count. You don't fire every time you're provoked. You wait. You let them get comfortable. Let them grow careless. And then, if it's necessary, you move, not with rage, with clarity. You don't just win. You win in a way they never want to play again. Because dominance isn't about being feared. It's about being unreadable. Let them wonder. Let them feel the weight of your silence long after you're gone. Make them afraid of your absence, not obsessed with your presence. Because the ones who win are not the loudest. They are the ones who are remembered, even when they say nothing. Machiavelli understood. You control what people see, and they fill in the rest. And they always fill it in with fear, ego, guilt, or doubt. That's not manipulation. That's psychological gravity. You don't terrify them. You let them terrify themselves. This is the way of the strategist. The fox and the lion, calm but capable, soft-spoken but sharp, patient but always 5 moves ahead. And if you want to be untouchable in this world, learn this. Stillness is not weakness, it's warning. Silence is not surrender, it's control. And power? Power doesn't beg to be noticed. It watches, it waits. And when it finally moves, it changes everything. So if this spoke to you, don't just nod and scroll. This isn't motivation. This is a new operating system. Drop a comment. Tell us what silence taught you. What did patience protect you from? Subscribe if you're done being predictable. If you're ready to trade performance for presence. If you're ready to become unreadable. Because this isn't a channel for the loud. It's for the lethal. The ones who sharpen themselves in silence and move when it matters most. We don't chase power. We build it. Quietly, strategically, permanently. Stay still, stay sharp, stay untouchable. The next move is yours.